we do not know much of anything right now, except for the X post and the pictures that you're seeing. But the pictures that you're seeing show a very, very significant law enforcement presence. Does that tell you anything, Josh?
Yeah, it tells us that in this day and age, whenever the call goes out that there's some type of potential active shooter, that agencies from around the area, not just the university police, but Atlanta police, likely the federal agents as well, would go. Again, the idea here being that you want to stop and neutralize a potential shooter before they can cause any additional harm. And so that is what we are so accustomed to seeing. What's interesting in some of this footage that we're seeing here now is that oftentimes whenever we get these helicopter shots up over these incidents, you kind of see a kind of a relaxed presence from officers, because we know that oftentimes these incidents are over quickly, sometimes seconds, sometimes even minutes. But what we're seeing here in some of these images, you can see officers still running, trying to get themselves into some type of position, potentially toward where this all went down. So this is still very much a fluid situation for law enforcement as we watch and wait to see what exactly is about to occur. Now, with the number of officers that are there on scene, they have the amount of resources that they would need, it appears, if indeed they wanted to move them closer to the central point of wherever this happened. So that tells us that wherever this actually occurred, that's likely being handled by officers. But, you know, we've seen in cases as well that if you have someone who opens fire and then flees, that then requires a lot of resources as well to try to bring that person into custody. So a lot of possibilities right now. We still don't know whether this has been resolved, whether if there was indeed some type of active shooter, whether that person has been taken into custody or neutralized, or this is someone that officers are potentially still searching for. But as you point out there, a massive police response, Phil.
Yeah, and to your point, the posture of the officers, particularly, you know, we're using obviously a helicopter shot from one of our affiliates. They were showing pushed up a little bit further just a few moments ago, moving with purpose, I think very clearly, to your point, not in a relaxed state whatsoever. Take us behind
the top of your...
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, as we just saw that we kind of went off screen, but you saw two officers in tactical gear running toward the top of your screen there. So as you mentioned, they're moving with a purpose right now as they try to understand what happened here. Sorry I interrupted you, Phil.
No. Please do always. I think, again, we want to emphasize, we do not know the specifics of exactly what is happening. There is a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, from Emory University, talking about an active shooter. You obviously see the law. There's the post from the Emory Emergency: active shooter on Emory Atlanta campus at Emory Point CVS. Run, hide, fight, avoid the area. As Josh noted, the run, hide, fight is often a repeated mantra phrase, warning, guidance effort in moments like this, which are unfortunately all too common. Josh, the all too common part we talk about quite often, but I want to, behind the scenes, because of how often you've covered these incidents, what's happening right now, given what you're seeing in terms of communications, federal, state, local, behind the scenes?
Yeah, so once that word goes out, again, the first step is to respond, and you have officers that are obviously doing that. But then they
Josh,
will
real quick, I just want to tell people what you just saw on your screen, I believe, was the CVS. You see there's a white car in front of it. This is, again, from a helicopter shot that is a CVS that we believe, at least according to the X post, that the shooting occurred or was believed to have occurred, or where the active shooter the shooting had taken place. Josh, sorry, I interrupted you. Just keep going.
Yeah, no, and so you'll have this unified command structure because you have multiple agencies, and so whoever the on-scene commander is there, obviously, you know, would be taking the lead and sending out the directions to all these different agencies. We are hearing from our affiliate WSB that says that one of the nearby hospitals is on standby, they're saying, to receive a wounded officer. So we're waiting for additional details there. Again, that coming from our affiliate WSB there in that area. So obviously in a situation like that, if we actually had a law enforcement officer who was involved and had potentially either exchanged gunfire or was initially hit by this person, obviously hoping for all the best. Right now the local affiliate is just describing that officer's status as wounded. No additional information on any other possible victims or the status of the potential gunman at this point. Again, we've seen these incidents happen various different ways, how they conclude. Sometimes they are indeed safely taken into custody by police. Sometimes there is an exchange of gunfire. Sometimes the shooters end up taking their own life. Those are the possibilities, but again, it's so soon right now. We're still waiting for updates from police. It's not surprising right now that they're not pushing that information out, because their goal right now is on first securing that scene. They're getting the word out, letting people know to stay out of the area, to shelter, to run, hide, fight if they indeed encounter a suspected shooter. But their focus right now, obviously, trying to get this under control and understand exactly what happened.
Yeah, we've been talking about this, and again, we want to make very clear to people, there's very little information right now. We're going off what we are seeing and the little information that we do have about this shooting. And an X account tied to Emory University tweeting out that there was an active shooter near CVS. You were watching affiliate pictures of ours from helicopters above the scene. You see a massive law enforcement presence right there. When you move up a little bit, as they've been doing sporadically throughout the course of the last 5 or 10 minutes, and you see the CVS, which is what was noted in the Emory post on social media where the active shooter had been located, there is a significant space between this law enforcement presence you're looking at right now and that CVS in terms of the actual the vehicles themselves, personnel themselves as well. Josh, we, and I'm going to keep doing this, and I know you will as well, being very cautious about what we actually know versus what we can see. What does that tell you about anything that's going on right now?
Yeah, well, so, in looking again, we're going based on what this helicopter shot is telling us, which can often be illuminating in these situations. It appears that you have a number of officers that are now returning back to where those vehicles were. Again, when you and I spoke just minutes ago, we saw officers rushing toward the top of your screen there, where we believe that CVS area is. And as I'm looking at that vehicle as well, it appears, again, it's hard to tell. It looks like the back window of that vehicle might be some type of issue there. So again, we don't know if that was actually involved here. But anyway, the posture of the police, where it doesn't look like they are in an emergent phase as they were only minutes ago when we saw them rushing up. Now they're coming back. That is often a sign, as we study their posture. And I can tell you, someone who worked in law enforcement, that you don't assume that kind of posture unless a threat is over. But again, anyone watching in that area right now, you should listen to what authorities say. Don't assume it's an all clear, but that's just some of the observations right now that we're seeing as we wait for our official word from the university, local law enforcement, that the situation has been resolved and we get more information. Yeah,
and hopeful that it is resolved in the most positive way possible as we continue to wait to find out information if there were any casualties. Obviously hearing from reports about a hospital being prepared to potentially take patients. Again, you see the gap between what we were just talking about, the very empty street in front of that CVS, but we also, as Josh astutely identified, that the law enforcement officials who had been in a very proactive posture just moments ago seem to not be that anymore. We don't know exactly what that means right now. Josh, we report on this a lot, and I think we're always very cautious in kind of the fog of the immediate moment of what we report, what we know, the information from the law enforcement side of things, which is a life you also led. What are they doing right now in this moment of uncertainty, of confusion, of kind of reports flying around?
Yeah, so the first key is communication. You want to ensure that everyone that is there, regardless of what agency, understands what's happening at the central point of where this took place. And again, you see this line of officers. You see some fire engine apparatus that are staged there, apparently just in case. But they want to ensure that everyone understands what's happening. And at the actual scene of where this took place, you'll have officers, if it has indeed been resolved, if someone is in custody, or there's been some other outcome with the potential gunman here, you're going to have investigators then working in to obviously identify who that person is. This all comes after, they would try to determine if there are any additional victims. They would, of course, if we're talking about this happening in or around a store, around a commercial center like that, they would want to do a sweep to ensure that there aren't any victims around. But again, this now will turn into an investigation. And if this is someone who has indeed been taken into custody and is alive, there would be a potential prosecution. So once the emergent phase of this is over, where you have the threat that's been resolved, you have any potential victims, you can see there someone's being let out there. It looks like one of the bystanders by law enforcement, a couple of them, they're bringing them out now out of that building. Obviously, if you have a shelter-in-place situation, you want people to do just that. And then after it's an all clear, then you'll have law enforcement go in and try to ensure that everyone comes out safely. But after all of this is over, if you do have a suspect that would then potentially face prosecution, that would rely on a methodical investigation. And so those are kind of the steps in order. First, you try to address the emergency, then you address any potential victims, and then obviously an investigative phase would come along with that as well, Phil.